Easy guys, it's Monk here. So today we're doing something, I suppose, a little bit different. Quick disclaimer, this is not something I'm an expert on. I've been using Logic for ages and I always neglect actually learning these nitty gritty things. So this is going to be good for me as well, just to go through all this properly. I have been through it, like we've done it, I swear, twice I've done it at my uni and I also did it at college before that we went through this. But today we're going to go through like the A to Z of key commands for Logic to help you and me speed up our workflows when we are producing in this DAW. What I'm reading off is this mat here. It's like a keyboard cover for MacBooks that basically has all of the key commands written on it. Now, I bought this thinking it was a really good idea because I was going to have it like on my keyboard on my Mac, but I just found that I didn't really like the feel of having it on the keyboard, so it came off it, and now I just kind of have it on the desk to try and remind me when I need to know stuff. But I often neglect it. I don't look at it as much as I should. So we're going to make this video just to like go through the keys basically and see if we can learn something together. So let's start at the beginning. A, I do know this one, opens up the track automation. So if you hit A on your keyboard, it's going to open up your automation lanes where we can, affect the parameters of things over time. I'm not going to go into all of these things into too much depth. We're just gonna blast through them essentially. So B is then smart control. That brings up these. So that's basically going to have some macro knobs for whatever plugin you might have open on that track. Yeah, it's going to change depending on what plugin you've got. That's the Ultra Beat one. This is just on an audio, nothing there. C, cycle mode. So that just highlights at the top your cycle when you have that around something. Turns that on and off. D is list editors. I never actually use this myself, but it stores all your storing of all the files and things in there. I never actually look at that though. E, editor. So you're going to bring up your piano roll if you've got on a MIDI track. If you're on an audio track, you get this editing thing, or you can edit the file. F brings up the browsers. This is like a history of your files and stuff, like every edit you've made, it keeps like a record of them, things like that. G, forgetting the alphabet. G, global tracks. This is like where you can put little markers for yourself and affect the sort of global tempo of your project. H is for hide view. I actually know what that does. Does anyone know what that does? Leave a comment below. I'll probably Google it after this video anyway. I is then inspector. So, okay, yeah. So that's the inspector up the side that has those channels. Brings up, your effect rack for each channel and things like that. J. Okay, so J is join files. So if you selected two audio files side by side with that, and then I whack J, we're going to join them, and it makes one cohesive audio file. K is just going to turn your metronome on and off. Up here you can see that turns on and off when I hit K. Then L is for loop. I never use this. I just copy the information over if I want to, but you can infinitely loop something. I wouldn't use that in a production context, but I think that's useful if you're just jamming and getting ideas down and you just want to set something on a loop for you to record a new part over. But I would never leave that on in a production session. If I want multiples, I will copy it over. You're going to have way more control in the end that way. Then M is to mute. That's just to mute whatever channel that you happen to have selected. N is the score editor. If you're like me and have minimal music theory knowledge, this is not something I ever look at. Then O is if we clicked on it, O is your loop browser, so that brings up all your loops in the side here, like the Apple loops. I use Splice for my loops and things, so I don't really look at them very often. But in the early days of producing, like I did used to use them as samples before I really knew where I could get them from myself. Then P brings up the piano roll, similar I suppose to the editor, but the editor is going to bring up whatever track you're working on. Like if you're on a MIDI track and you hit E, then it's going to bring up the piano roll as well. It's sort of intuitive in that way. Whereas if you press P, it's always going to bring up the piano roll regardless of what track you're on. Q is quantized, so if you are in the piano roll, you've got anything selected, I will take that out of time. I hit Q, that's going to ping it into where it should be depending on these settings here. It's basically when you hit Q, it's doing the same as hitting the Q button that's there. R is record, so you know whatever track you're on, you hit R, and it's gonna start recording. That's quite simple. Then S is just solo whatever track you're working on. Like say it will just mean you can, if you just want to hear one track but nothing else, you're just gonna solo that track. T brings up tools, so it's like essentially like right clicking and brings up all these like editor tools there. U for rounded locators. Then V for plugins, but I've noticed that when I hit V, nothing actually comes up, so I'm not actually sure what that one's doing. Then W is your audio file editor, so if you have an audio file selected like that, and then you hit W, brings up the file editor. X brings up your mixer that looks like that. Y is your library, so all your Logic sounds and preset stuff like there in the library. That's Y, and then Z is toggle zoom. So whatever one of these like units you've got selected, you just hit Z, and you're going to zoom in on it, which is quite handy if you need to do any detailed surgical stuff. So that's kind of very quick, just bash through them. As I said, I wasn't as familiar as I should be. I'm sort of reading off this keyboard map thing here. But it's good to remind yourself of these things every so often, because these things can obviously help you to speed up your workflow and help you get to creative ideas quicker. There's obviously loads more, because as soon as you start doing stuff like holding Command and Shift and Control and Option and all that, you're going to change what the keys are doing. So maybe we can do more of these videos if you think they're actually useful. But I'm sure this is information that's on the internet anyway. But you know, just doing my own spin on it, I suppose. So if you found that useful, drop a like and subscribe. That really helps the algorithms and helps me to sort of carry on doing what I'm doing. And then if you've got any questions or anything like that, drop them in the comments and I'll get back to you when I can. Otherwise, big up, and hopefully see you guys in the next video.